Hey everybody, how's it going out there? This is Nick Chafee. I'm coming at you from my studio in Long Beach, California, the Woodshed. And today we're going to talk about goals. Goals, what are they? We know we should have them. All our teachers tell us that they're a great idea, but what are they? How do we set them? How do we stick to them? We're going to talk about that today. By now, your school year is probably in full swing, and I hope you all had a wonderful summer. I know I certainly did. My summer was busy. I worked a lot, for which I'm grateful, and I also got to do a fair amount of traveling with my family. And generally, my family, we like to take trips kind of to the outdoors. We like to go camping and hiking and that sort of thing, which is great because I get a lot of quiet time alone to kind of reflect and think and make plans and get ready for the upcoming school year. And of course, this transition time between the summertime and the school year, it's a great time to talk about your plans for the future and specifically to talk about your goals. I'm sure you've heard your whole life from your teachers and your family that goals are important. We all want the best for the people we love. We all want you to shoot for the stars and achieve anything that you could dream of. But goals are also scary. You know, when you set a goal, you're committing to something, and it's something that you very well could fail if you don't achieve. So it's much more comfortable to kind of just go along and live your life and not set goals and see what happens. But of course, that's not a very inspired way to live life, and that's not a way to go about your life that's going to bring you much success, if any, in the long run. Goals don't have to be scary. You set goals every day probably without even realizing it. For example, you woke up this morning, you got dressed, and you got to school. You had a goal of getting to school on time. Did you achieve that goal? Well, I don't know. Were you tardy for your first class? Now that seems like a small, trivial thing, but actually that's a great goal. Being on time is an invaluable life skill. It's infuriating to have that one friend or bandmate or coworker who can never show up on time to anything, right? And that's also a great goal because it follows what we call the SMART criteria for goal setting. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. SMART. As we go through the SMART criteria, try to keep some of your own goals in mind, whether they be for school, for life, for family, or what I'm interested in, your trumpet playing. The first letter, letter S, stands for specific. I want to learn my scales. Now that's a noble pursuit, but it's not a very great goal. How about I will learn all 12 major scales? Now it's specific. Now we're getting somewhere, which takes us to the M, measurable. You know, it's one thing to say, I'd like to lose some weight. It's a completely different thing to say, I'm going to lose 15 pounds for my trip to Hawaii. Now your goal is measurable. 15 pounds equals success. So how are you going to measure a goal of learning your major scales? Well, how about this? I will be able to play all 12 major scales in eighth notes with my metronome at quarter note equals 120, 2 octaves. Now we have a way of measuring when we've accomplished that goal. And by the way, I think it's important that the measurement is something you have control over. For example, to say I'm going to win the honor band audition, now that's a great goal, but what if Wynton Bergeron shows up and plays a better audition than you? They're going to take him, and you don't have control over that. Me, I've lost gigs because I wasn't tall enough. I can't change that. You know, what you do have control over is your preparation for that audition. So how about you make your goal to learn your honor band audition music with the metronome, with your tuner, get it all perfectly prepared. Those are measurables that you have control over. And then just let the results speak for themselves, right? So now that we've covered specific and measurable, let's go on to the A&R. And no, I'm not talking about the artist and rep department at the record label. They don't even have those anymore, I don't think. What I'm talking about is attainable and realistic. And these are two things that are a little bit easy to get mixed up, so we'll go over them individually. This is my take on it. Attainable means whether or not you have the physical ability to make that goal. Remember our goal of losing 15 pounds before your vacation to Hawaii? Well, if your vacation to Hawaii is next week, you're probably not physically able to accomplish that. If your vacation to Hawaii is 3 months from now, okay, you can make that happen. Do you have the range to play all 12 major scales 2 octaves? If you do, great. If not, let's just adjust that goal and say, we're going to play all 12 major scales 1 octave, and then we'll do some other things to work on your range. Hey, I think that's another goal we can make. So that's attainable, whether or not you have the physical skills to do it. Realistic, on the other hand, that refers to whether or not you have the personal willingness and dedication to achieve your goal. If you are not willing to stop eating 3 bowls of Cocoa Puffs with Coca-Cola poured over the top of them for breakfast, your goal of losing weight is not realistic. And if you've decided that this whole practicing the trumpet thing, that's really not for you, well, then the goal of learning all your major scales, that's also not realistic. So that means for a goal to be realistic, it should really be something that you really want. Don't just set goals because your teacher or your parents or your friends say you should be doing this. Set a goal that means something to you, and then it's going to be much more realistic that you will put in the work to make it happen. So just to review, the ANR, attainable is that you can physically accomplish it, and realistic means that you have the drive, the heart, the willingness to put in the work to make it happen. All right, we're almost out of time, which brings me to the T in SMART, timely. Nice segue, huh? Timeliness is a bit of a combination between a measurable and an ANR. You could think of it like a due date for a homework assignment. And just like homework, some goals can be completed rather quickly, whereas others are long-term projects. If you've got a solo you have to memorize for your concert next week, that's a short-term goal. But if your goal is to graduate from college with a degree in music performance, well, that's, definitely more long-term. Personally, I set goals of all different lengths. Some goals even begin and end within the course of a day or even an hour. Every practice session for me has a goal, and sometimes I complete that goal before I go to lunch that day. On the other hand, I've got a goal to retire and buy a sailboat. That's a long-term goal. I'd say that our goal of learning all 12 major scales is probably more medium length, right? Are you going to finish that next week or in a month? Might take a little bit longer, but by Christmas, yeah, that's pretty realistic. That's a good, timely goal. So let's finish our goal statement. I will be able to play all 12 major scales, 2 octaves with my metronome at 120 by Christmas. That's a great goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's both attainable and realistic, and it's got a timeline. Now, I think it would be timely for me to wrap this up, but before we go, I'm going to let you in on one of my little personal goals. Create a series of video blogs for your students and release at least once a month for the entire school year. There you go. I've created a goal. It's measurable, it's specific, it's timely, it's realistic, it's even attainable. And I've now told the world about it, which is an important element in actually achieving your goals. But we'll get into that next time. In the meantime, start thinking about your own goals. We'll talk about this in your lessons, and we'll develop a good set of goals for you personally to strive for during this school year. Thanks for watching. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and I'm really excited for the months and the meetings ahead as we work towards raising our level of musicianship and achieving all of our goals, both musically, personally, professionally, and scholastically. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.